HR our supply chain, highlighting and showcasing solutions for the most complex challenges facing the industry in 21st century by our team of subject matter experts and mentors. Broadcasting every week, all year round, we will present the most up-to-date series of podcasts and webinars.
Hello and welcome to another new episode of Digital Supply Chain. This is Nurhadi House, and my guest today is Max Ken, Vice President of Global Procurement at Compleat Software. So thanks for being on here, Max. It's great to have you on the show.
Great to have you too. Thanks, Nurhadi.
Okay, so in today's episode, we are going to talk about sustainability through digital procurement. But before we get started, Max, can you please brief a bit about yourself and your professional background?
Yeah, of course. I'll try to keep it brief. So I started straight out of university really into the sort of supply chain world, looking at mainly office supplies in the UK, procurement around components in the sort of remanufactured toner and printing industry. And I then ended up working for quite a few office supplies and logistics providers, really. So I started to learn the products and services and how that was all distributed to certainly UK businesses. I then started to work with more global organisations, more on the sort of sales and account management side. But again, that was working very much with procurement and procurement software and integrating the business I was working with into digital software and purchase to pay systems. I then managed a sales force for an outsourced procurement company for 3 years. So I learned procurement from the other side of things and how that process works. And finally, I've been at Compleat Software for the last 3 years. And when we started, that was taking and looking at the data we held for our customers and how we could help them use that data to save money. 3 years later, we've got a fully functioning spend management, spend analytics division. We've got a team built around the delivery of that. We're getting great traction with our customer base where they're now realizing what they can do with the data. And just how much power was within that. So things like business intelligence, Power BI, data visualization, procurement spend analytics, and we're now got carbon tracking as well. So it's been a really exciting journey. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell, really. That's where I've come from.
Okay, so Max, let's get started with very basic questions. What does sustainability mean in procurement?
Okay, so sustainability, I think, is got quite a few different connotations to it. And we've heard terms in business for the last sort of maybe even 5-10 years, like CSR, corporate social responsibility, and now ESG is the big buzzword, where that, you know, enterprise social and governance covers everything in a business. And sustainability is part of that. And I think it's where we're talking about, in a procurement setting, the products that a business is buying, and how those products are manufactured, how they arrive at the business, and everything else within that scope. You know, is that product arriving in a way that impacts the environment in a positive or negative way? Does it? Could there be a more environmentally friendly product that could be purchased, or is the way that those products are being purchased from certain organisations, is that sustainable for the local economy, for example? So you've obviously got big global brands selling in more and more products online to businesses. You know, what happens to those companies that sell the same products in a local area? Being sustainable means that we're being mindful of all of those factors, the environmental areas, how our business is operating, how we're buying in a way that sustains our own business. And if those products themselves, products and services, could be improved in the way they impact the environment. So it's a really wide topic, and I think anyone from procurement listening into this will start to, if they haven't already, realise how much of a part to play in this they have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And talking a bit about digital procurement, what is the relationship between sustainability and digital procurement, and how digital procurement can help to build sustainability?
The relationship between sustainability and digital procurement is becoming more and more apparent, and it's really down to the supply chain and the suppliers and the relationships that procurement have with those suppliers. A lot of the time, procurement will probably have a stronger relationship or more direct relationship with the key suppliers they've got in a business than anyone else will. So when we look at a sustainability and the impact that a business has on the environment, a lot of the reports and a lot of the data at the moment is pointing towards between 60 to 90% of the carbon emissions impact just on one factor being up 60 to 90% of a company's total emissions. So the suppliers and the supply chain a business is using is where the main impact on the environment is that they will be having. So it's the choices they make on where they buy from. And again, procurement has a big part to play in that. Digital procurement then is around analysing firstly in the data of who they're buying from, being able to see the kind of data we need to really analyse how environmentally friendly or what kind of carbon emissions impact each company has that they're buying from. And there's more tools and data coming out around that at the moment. And then it's, what other factors do they have in, tools like a supplier relationship management software, where those suppliers could be rated, they could be rated for environmental credentials or diversity or employment policies or anything else that was a key criteria for the business. But having that kind of software allows procurement to specify what suppliers are best for a sustainable procurement policy for that particular business, and then the digital procurement software will actually enforce that and deploy it along amongst the end users within that business, so that they have to follow that process. So they're all intrinsically linked. I don't think one can work without the other.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how do you see the trends of procurement sustainability in recent days? Is there any major developments in terms of technology, market, policy, and probably a bit on challenge and opportunity mix?
It's really exciting at the moment. I'm right at the forefront of this, and I'm not usually in that position, and procurement's not normally in that place where we traditionally have had new software and new things to implement, but they all kind of do the same things. They're all about controlling which suppliers are purchased from and automating elements of that process. So having procurement and coming into having sustainability coming into the procurement technology market is really exciting, because you can now look at your suppliers in a different way. You can review, as I said in the answer to the last question, on different criteria for that particular supplier. In the marketplace, we're seeing more and more around this. So certainly within our own business, we're launching and we've just launched a carbon emissions tracking tool that looks at the supply chain emissions of every single supplier being purchased amongst the business and what total impact that has on the organization. The next part of that is how the organization using that tool speaks to each supplier and works with them to manage down those emissions. Otherwise, it will affect them commercially. They may not choose to order from the same suppliers they used before because they're no longer environmentally friendly enough or sustainable enough to fit in with the new policies of this particular organization that's going to buy from them. So there's much more technology coming out around supplier relationship management software that takes into account some of these ratings and ratios that are needed. There's a lot more carbon calculators coming out. I think the one big challenge they're all facing is that where does the data come from, and how good is that data that's fed into it? So a lot of calculators we see online for calculating the business carbon emissions need a data source, which is a major stumbling block if they're not integrated with a particular system. So that's a big challenge. I think I've seen some B2C tools out there that rely on open banking. So for an individual, linking a carbon calculator to your bank feed so it can determine what products you're buying and the environmental impact for you, I think works. But for a business to try and get that data from anything else than a ERP or an automation sort of tool like an AP automation system, it's just not going to work. So everything I'm hearing in the industry is that carbon calculation is going to follow the ERP software route, because that's the best feed source of data to give these tools what they need to really show businesses what their impact is. The other big issue with this is having one global business sustainability rating. At the moment, there's no global standard, so countries are coming up with their own ratings. There's a lots on, how much they're disclosing, how much they're not disclosing on that sort of stuff. So it's a real minefield that that needs to be sorted out. There's definitely some research and a lot of work going into having some sort of global standard on this, but at the moment nothing exists.
So talk a bit about challenge. So what advice can you offer to the business leader on how to integrate the digital transformation into sustainability goals?
I think, there's a few things here. So the best advice from a starting point is ensuring that the senior management team are all on board with a sustainability strategy. Some people have commercial drivers, others have more sort of environmental ones, and you have to have both, I think, in the boardroom, understood as objectives for this to really work in a business. So the whole board has to be agreed that we have to do something about our sustainability pledges, who we are as a business, what our impact on the environment is, and our ESG goals. If everyone in the board is agreed with that, then you start to then see the business itself change from there. So that's the first thing for business leaders, to make sure they've got their team on board with them to properly integrate this. Second thing, once we start talking about digital transformation, is what have you got at the moment? Where are you on your journey? Have you got a purchasing system or some sort of purchase to pay tool in place, or something that's capturing that spend and expenditure data and invoice data, so we can see where purchases are being made and which suppliers are being used? And it depends what you've got already. If the business we're talking to has already got these things in place, then they're a lot further down the journey. And then it's really speaking to their software providers about what information can you give us on our suppliers that we're using that we don't have. And if we can't achieve that with our current provider, what other tools are out there that maybe integrate with our ERP software to give us those additional calculations or additional reports that we need to see to drive these things. And that then comes back to the board again in terms of the values they set of the business, to say, well, these are our key criteria for people that we must choose to buy from. So they must be from now on suppliers with a certain rating of how sustainable they are, or any other criteria that applies to the values of the business. But you've now got a delivery mechanism for that within the software. And I think that's the key to it. It's sort of those two elements really, is overall buy-in from the senior team to make sure that everyone is going with this, and it goes right through the business then, and then the software itself that you're using to deliver this message, and how that's implemented. Mm-hmm. So not an easy task, but it's something we're all going to have to face, I think. And the real point of it is that each business that does this is impacting positively the businesses they're working for, so they're likely to get more business from it, against those who aren't going to do something about this straight away. Businesses will choose not to buy from organisations if they can see that they are having a worse impact on the environment, as opposed to another competitive business they could buy from.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, Max, actually I still have a couple of questions, but we are running out of time. So thank you again for joining us today, and it was really nice conversation. I look forward to speaking with you at another time.
Of course. Thank you very much for the time. That's brilliant. Look forward to speaking again.
At Bichara Supply Chain, we are committed to driving global perspective to embrace technological adaptation in improving process efficiencies. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share Bichara Supply Chain. And stay tuned for the latest updates. To learn more, visit our website www.bicharasupplychain.com. Thank you for listening to us. We look forward to seeing you at our next episode.